My entire family seems to be torn, and I feel like everybody's making good points. I want to do what is best for my nephew in this situation. I'm going to try to give you guys the black and white version of this. I want you guys to give me honest advice. I want to make sure that I'm not letting my emotions harm my nephew or stop him from doing something he should. This story may be a little confusing because I have to tell you guys what happened 6 years ago first. I will use fake names for this post. 6 years ago, I was 22-year-old female, now 28-year-old female. My sister Abby was 30 years old, now 36 years old. My nephew Sammy was 14 years old, now 20 years old, and my boyfriend was 23 years old, now 29 years old, and my husband. 6 years ago, Sammy lost his childhood best friend. These boys were so close that LJ would come with us on family vacations. They had known each other since they were 3, and people would think they were twins. LJ passed away in a car accident when he and his father were hit by a drunk driver. I'll be honest, it hurt. I felt like I lost a nephew. LJ and Sammy would spend the night at my house all the time when one of their moms had to work. Sammy was understandably distraught. Abby would tell you that he started to act out, but I don't see it that way. Yes, he acted differently, but I feel like every parent here would have given him a pass. Here's a list of the things Sammy did that Abby couldn't handle. 1. His grades dropped from all A's to B's and C's, with mostly B's. 2. He would skip one of his classes to go hide in the library because the teacher made a memorial for LJ, and he couldn't handle seeing it every day. This was also within the first week of his passing. 3. He didn't want to play basketball anymore because it reminded him of LJ. He later told me that it made him sad to think of all the plays they made together. I know I'm not a mom, and Abby would always say I would have understood if I was one. But I still feel like Sammy was a kid who lost his brother, basically. 3 months after LJ passed, Abby and Sammy showed up at my house. Sammy was crying and had a bag with him. Abby told me that either I could get him, or she would drop him off on the street. I told him to go to my guest bedroom because I didn't think he should hear that stuff. That night, I tried to talk to Abby. I asked her what was going on. At this point, I told Abby that I thought losing LJ affected her too. LJ used to call her his second mom. Abby ignored me and left my home. Sammy moved in with me, and it was hard for a while. Abby just moved away. She stopped responding to my messages or calls. She would call our parents, but she would hang up if they mentioned Sammy or me. She went no contact with all of us. Now I'm unsure if this is true, but I believe it is. A few days after Sammy moved in, I asked him what happened with his mom that night. He looked me in the eyes and told me that Abby said, "The wrong boy died that night." Now, Abby denies this, but 6 years later, Sammy will still say it word for word. Abby changes her story. At first it was, she would never say anything like that. Then it was, Sammy was overreacting. Then it was, that's too long ago for me to remember. Again, I don't want to say something happens that I am unsure of, but I 100% believe my nephew. My husband, my boyfriend at the time, helped me to take care of him, and we put Sammy in therapy. It was hard. I felt like I became the mom of a teenager overnight. My parents tried to help, but it was a lot for all of us. Currently, Sammy has gone to college and just finished his second year. Sammy got an amazing internship, and my husband and I threw him a big party in early May. Abby showed up saying how proud of her boy she was. Sammy just stared at her before walking away. She spent the entire party telling his friends and everyone else how she raised such a fine young man. After the party, Sammy told her he never wanted to see her again and that he didn't have a mom. Now this is where I'm torn. Some of my family feels like Abby deserves a second chance, but I don't. I don't want to let my feelings hold Sammy back, but I really don't think she deserves it. I remember calling my sister for weeks trying to get her to talk to her son. I remember when her son broke his arm, and I texted that he was in the ER. I remember his first date. I remember when he graduated high school. I remember driving him to college. I remember my husband teaching him to drive. I remember every time I tried to contact her. She had more than one chance. My mom believes that I am afraid of losing my maternal role in Sammy's life, but that's not it. I have always kept the mindset that I am an aunt. It's just when you have a 14-year-old cry to you because his mom won't answer his calls and ask you, why doesn't she love him? That changes your mind. Should I encourage Sammy to see his mom? Also, as an add-on, Sammy doesn't want to deal with her at all. But my mom believes that if I encourage it, he will. Abby is also asking me to help her reconnect with Sammy. Edit. I have a quick edit to make. I apologize if this is incoherent, because I am pissed. Long story short, my mom called Sammy this morning asking if he would fix something on her smart TV. He agreed to do it before he came over here for dinner. My mom and Abby bombarded him. I am pissed already about this, but that's not the worst part. The worst freaking part is that I thought Abby came back because she was remorseful or regretted everything, but no. Abby was engaged to a man who has a 9-year-old daughter. Apparently, when the guy found out she abandoned Sammy, he called it off. She only wants to bring Sammy around so that he can pretend his mom was always in his life. The guy said he couldn't marry a person who would just abandon her son. I am trying my best to be respectful to my mom, but I could honestly cuss her out. It is taking all of my power to not drive to her house right now. Edit 2. Link to update, because a lot of people wanted one now. For a few comments before the update, comment 1. Sammy's old enough to know whether he wants Abby in his life or not. Don't you dare force her on him, especially after swanning in at his party, pretending she didn't unceremoniously abandon him for 6 years. Did she contribute financially to his upkeep? In the very least, she should have started with an apology and a huge check, and Sammy would still be right to tell her to F off. Comment 2. Abby made her own mess. Nephew said he was done with her. He is an adult, and I would back him up in any way he says. Frick Abby. Frick anyone else who thinks she deserves anything. Nope. If when nephew says he will talk to her, then you can facilitate it. Until then, only nephew calls the shots. Just no family. Thank you for being the adult he needed. Best wishes. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. So, where do I even start with this latest circus? After the whole ambush at my mom's place, things went from bad to worse. Sammy was shaken up and I was fuming. But it didn't end there. Abby, in her infinite wisdom, decided to take things up a notch. She showed up at my house unannounced, crying and carrying a scrapbook full of pictures of Sammy growing up. She was putting on a real show, saying she wanted to make amends, that she was a changed person. I didn't buy it for a second. But here's the kicker. She didn't come alone. She brought her ex-fiancé with her, the one who dumped her because of what she did to Sammy. She was trying to prove to him that she could be a good mother. It was all a performance, and I was the audience. Sammy, bless his heart, he just sat there looking like he wanted to disappear. And I can't blame him. Abby was laying it on thick, talking about how much she missed him and how she was wrong. But when Sammy asked her why she said those horrible things about wishing he was the one who died instead of LJ, she just brushed it off. Said it was all in the past and that they should move forward. The ex-fiancé, he seemed to be eating it up, nodding along to Abby's every word. I could see Sammy's face, the way his eyes just went empty. It was like he was back to being that 14-year-old kid who got told his mom wished he was dead. But it didn't stop there. Abby had another bomb to drop. She's pregnant. Yeah, you heard that right. She's expecting a baby with her ex-fiancé, and she wants Sammy to be a part of their new family. I could see the trap she was laying out, trying to tie Sammy back into her life with this new sibling on the way. Sammy, he didn't say much. He just got up and left the room. And I was left there with Abby and her ex, feeling like I was in some twisted soap opera. I told them to leave, that Sammy needed space and time, but Abby wouldn't have it. She started accusing me of trying to keep Sammy away from her, of poisoning him against her. It was a mess. After they left, I found Sammy in his old room, just staring at the wall. He didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't push him. I could tell he was processing, trying to figure out what this all meant for him. The next day, things got even more complicated. Abby's ex showed up at my door, alone this time. He was apologetic, said he didn't realize how deep the wounds were. He told me he called off the engagement for good, that he couldn't be with someone capable of what Abby did. He asked me to look after Abby, said she wasn't taking the breakup well. I didn't know what to say. Here was this man, a stranger really, asking me to care for the sister who had caused so much pain. I told him I'd think about it, but inside I was screaming. Why should I be the one to pick up the pieces? Why should Sammy have to deal with any of this? And that's where we are now. Abby's out there, pregnant and alone, and I'm here, trying to keep my family from falling apart. Sammy's quiet, more than usual. I can tell he's struggling with the idea of having a half-sibling out there, with everything else that's happened. I'm trying to be there for him, to be the aunt he needs, but it's hard. It's hard not to resent Abby for all the chaos she's brought into our lives. It's hard not to want to just shut her out completely. But then I think about that baby, my future niece or nephew, and I'm torn. Thanks for reading. I just needed to get this off my chest. Am I the idiot for being left out of my own baby shower? Because my mother-in-law can't handle digital invites? I am a female to male transgender, and I've always had issues with my mother-in-law, Mill. She has never been outright rude to me, but likes to make snide remarks and petty moves, which my husband tends to miss. This one incident was particularly egregious. My mother planned a baby shower for me, and ever since then it has been chaotic. We sent out invites 2 months prior to the baby shower. The invites were sent out via text, and a group was created on social media as well. This upset my mother-in-law. My husband didn't think she was being rude, but I felt a bit slighted when she called. She said it's very strange to send digital invites and that I need to send her a physical one. She sent me her address. My husband called to let her know that we would not be sending physical invites to anyone, as this is quicker and cheaper. I thought this would be the end of our problems. However, a week later, she called saying her family will not be attending, since this is a kid-free event. So half of the guests are no longer coming, which I thought was weird as most of them sent back an RSVP saying they would be attending. Then she proposed the idea to my husband to have a separate baby shower for her family and friends, since y'all didn't invite a lot of people from this side of the family. The guest list for our baby shower was limited to close friends and family, so that's all we heard about the baby shower until this week. She planned the baby shower for the end of the month. My husband called her today to ask when and where this will be, since we haven't heard anything. To which she responds, "Oh, I forgot to send you the invite." I thought this was a bit weird, as a baby shower should be about celebrating the new baby and parents. It's almost as if it wasn't about us. She sent the invitation, and it only mentions my husband's name and not mine. The invite says, "Celebrate, husband's name, becoming a daddy." Am I being sensitive to all of this? I will be 37 weeks pregnant at that point, and it is about 2.5 hours from where we live. It seems like this is more about her and my husband than celebrating our child together. I feel like more of a vessel to her than the mother of her grandchild. Am I overthinking this? Edit update. The second shower has been canceled, but not before my mother-in-law told me that I'm insecure. And of course I would try to make this about me. She told my husband to get me in check and that this was extremely disrespectful. She told us we wasted so many people's money and time, and that we will be answering to God for this. This then turned into a rant about how I am apparently the reason for their divide, and why he doesn't visit her. She said that ever since we started dating, my insecurities and trust issues have affected their relationship because I didn't encourage him to go see her. I let her know that it is not my responsibility to tell him to go visit his mom if he chooses not to. She texted again this morning saying that it is all my fault because I made it about me and that these issues are coming to light. My husband has told me not to respond to her anymore and just let her continue to spout her craziness. I doubt this will be the end of this, as she has continued to text us throughout the night. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think it is pretty obvious that you cannot travel 2.5 hours that close to your due date, and neither can your husband. Your mother-in-law is triangulating the family and giving her own version of events. I'd recommend that your husband set the record straight with his side of the family, because who knows what lies and omissions that mother-in-law is telling them. Comment 2. Married man here. Your husband needs to shut that down. Hard, that's passive-aggressive nonsense. And your mother-in-law needs to get over herself before you actually have the baby, because she is not the center of the universe. Your husband absolutely has to have your back on this. This should be non-negotiable. Good luck. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since my last post. So, the second baby shower got axed, right? But the fallout was like a bomb went off. My mother-in-law, she's been on a warpath ever since, and it's been a rough couple of weeks. After the whole shower cancellation drama, things just spiraled. My husband, bless him, he's been trying to play problem solver, but it's like trying to stitch up a wound that won't stop bleeding. He's caught in the middle, and I can tell it's eating him up inside. He's always been the type to avoid conflict, you know? But this is something else. Now, my mother-in-law, she's been relentless. She's been calling family members, painting me as the villain in this whole mess. She's got this way of twisting things, making it seem like I'm the one tearing the family apart. And the worst part? Some of them are buying it. I've been getting these passive-aggressive messages from relatives I barely know, telling me to keep the peace and think of the family. It's like they don't even care about my side of the story. But here's where it gets really messy. My husband's cousin, who's always been super close to my mother-in-law, decided to take matters into his own hands. He went and booked a venue, sent out new invites, all behind our backs. He said it was to fix the family rift. But guess what? The invites still didn't have my name on it. It was like I didn't even exist. My husband, he tried to shut it down, told his cousin it wasn't his place. But that just blew up in our faces. Now, we've got this huge family event happening, and it feels like we're being strong-armed into going. My husband, he's torn up about it. He doesn't want to go, doesn't want to reward their behavior, but he's also scared of losing his family. We talked about it, long into the night, weighing our options. In the end, we decided to go. It felt like giving in, but we thought maybe, just maybe, it could be a step towards healing. So we packed our bags, made the long drive, all the while hoping we weren't making a huge mistake. The day of the shower, if you can even call it that, was a disaster. We walked in and it was like stepping into enemy territory. The cold stares, the whispers. It was clear we weren't welcome. My mother-in-law, she was holding court, playing the doting grandmother-to-be. But the second she saw me, her smile vanished. I tried, I really did. I smiled, I thanked people for coming, but it was like talking to a wall. And then, in the middle of it all, my mother-in-law took the floor. She gave this speech, all about family and forgiveness, but the barbs were all too clear. She talked about some people being too sensitive, about how we all need to put family first. It wasn't a celebration, it was a public shaming. The ride home was silent. My husband, he was furious, hurt, all of it. He felt betrayed, and I did too. We had taken the risk, hoping for the best, but it had backfired spectacularly. We were back at square one, only now it felt like we had lost even more ground. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, my husband got a text from his mom. She was uninviting us from any future family events until we apologized for our behavior. Can you believe that? After everything, she still expected us to say sorry. So here we are, 2 weeks later, more isolated from his family than ever. My husband, he's barely talking to anyone on his side now. He's hurt, and I don't blame him. As for me, I'm just tired. Tired of the drama, the fights, the constant tension. I thought this baby would bring us all together, but it feels like it's just driving us further apart. Thanks for reading. It's been a rough ride, and I appreciate you being here for it. Am I the idiot for leaving my boyfriend? After discovering his secret child and hidden debts, I am 28 years old, and my husband is 27. He is content to call himself my husband, but won't actually marry me. We have been together for 10 years. I've been with him since high school, and 2 years ago, I thought we would beat the high school couples always break up rule. I've always been scared of pregnancy. That's no secret. But a while back, we saw family. He has never seen me interact with young kids 8 and under, and I think he got baby rabies. He begged me for kids, promised to do whatever I needed to have kids. He just really wanted to have a family with me. My husband told me he saw a vision from God, himself in an office surrounded by paperwork. He was miserable, and then an alternate future, one with me and children. Happiness. He said he couldn't ignore that. So I said yes. We started trying immediately. 2 months later, all intimacy stopped. That's when he started second-guessing it. Kids are a bad idea. We can't afford them. We can. We have to move. What if he was a bad dad? What if they were allergic to our cats? On and on. He suggested adopting. I was okay with it. I'm still worried I'd hurt myself if I got pregnant by falling due to the bad ankle. But the ages he wanted to adopt kept getting higher and higher. And then he said he hates kids, doesn't want kids, never did. And I was pushing him for them. Maybe later. Give him more time. I seriously started considering breaking up when that happened. But I stuck around. He started at a new job late last year. We didn't see family until after the holidays because of it, and our holidays were severely impacted by the job. We didn't even set up a tree. I was very upset, and we fought over it. I dropped it, like always. When our Valentines went the same as last year, movie and a dinner at a high-end restaurant and then a night in a hotel, I was disappointed, but okay. He had suggested we do some things the day of our actual anniversary. Exactly 1 week later. So I figured, hey, he split it up. No big deal. And February 21st went well. There was a moment there that I felt very close to him. It was like we had that passion, that love. And I was ready to not have kids until we're more stable, whatever that looked like to him. I was okay with that, because eventually we would have them. And I thought he was going to propose. He looked so intense, so focused. I swore that was the moment. I got excited, I kissed him, and then waited. But then he looked away and said something unrelated, and we went home. I was frustrated. I spent hours making something. 1,000,000 tiny notes for a bad day, and a booklet of memories. I burned it all. I told him, "This is what you're doing to me. I will not put that much effort into you again until something changes." Early this month, we signed the lease to renew at our current apartment, and those arguments came back, creeping around in my head and reminding me I wouldn't have that promised future. Because we both know he'd be a great dad, but he's too scared to ever actually do it. He never will. I told him it was over after an argument. He broke down in front of me and begged. Promised me everything. I hesitated, but he said he can't make it without me. He'd unalive himself. I relented and said, okay, we'll try again. Start over. He'll find someone to take over the lease and we'll get a house. We'll get married. We could start doing the things to adopt. He got into a car accident last week. Very painful, but not debilitating injuries, bad back pain mostly. I didn't even go to the hospital. He just texted me, and I texted back. His friend took a charger to the hospital for him since I can't drive and so couldn't take him one. That friend lives in the same apartment complex, but I didn't go with him. I felt nothing. He was alive, that's all that mattered to me. But now I'm left knowing I don't love him the same anymore. I care for him, I love him, but I no longer see him as my future partner. He hasn't asked for intimacy since the accident, but I don't love him that way anymore and wouldn't give it to him if he asked. It's like everything is just shut off. I waited 10 years for him to graduate and marry me. I stayed when the new job he got in October wouldn't change anything, but actually messed up all our holidays, including Halloween. I just don't want to do it anymore. How do I keep him from breaking down again? I want this to be over, and I need to do it as gently as possible. Any tips would be appreciated. Edit. He is home from the hospital as of when I made the post. I didn't clarify he was home already, sorry. The injuries are severe strain and contusions of lumbar parietal muscles. DDK, what that means, edit. At the end, because I didn't know where else to put this, I made him book therapy and psych appointments when the vision happened. Both said he's okay. He's never had one before or since. Major edit. People are being harsher on him than I thought, and more information came up in a comment. So here's more info. He's freaking perfect. I can't drive? Fine. Here's a credit card for Uber. I don't want to cook? Okay, he will. I couldn't clean for a bit, so he hired someone. He pays me cash monthly in lieu of me having a job. I had a huge mental breakdown 5 years ago, and he helped me through it when I had to stop working and go to treatment. He has done so freaking much for me. It is only because I am mentally stable that I am confident I could leave, get and keep a job and survive. I just feel guilty for it. All of it. He did so much and now I want to leave. But kids, extended families, holidays. Where we live, we should agree on that. I want to be more independent, be more normal, get a job, learn to drive, but I can't. He's talking about getting me lessons. It just makes me feel guiltier for being unhappy. Anything before 4 p.m. PST didn't have this last edit's info in their advice. Edit. I'm sleeping on it and seeing if a couple more replies come in, but I'm done commenting now. Thanks, y'all. I have a lot to think about. Probably know how this is going to go. Really appreciate the harshness and the kindness. Special thanks to helpful name Vexbox and one DM person. Thanks for letting me vent. 3-3 also. It was bothering me, so I had to go look it up. I haven't dug out that chain of emails in over a year. It was amitriptyline. That's the med the pharmacy swapped out for my lamotrigine and triggered the breakdown. I was swapping dosages of lamotrigine and didn't know what the new size looked like. Just took it from the pharmacy and assumed it was right. I always check pill descriptions now. You should too. Make sure it matches. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You know that it's time to move on. You know that he's going to tell you he can't live without you and other lies to keep you tied to him. Don't let him waste any more of your time. If he threatens to harm himself, call the police and tell them to handle it. Comment 2. He's not your husband, for one thing. He's your long-term boyfriend. You're only with him because he emotionally manipulated you with threats of self-harm. Just leave. If he threatens to hurt himself, call EMS. You don't have to engage with him, just go. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. A lot has happened since the last post. After the car accident, things went from bad to worse. He started therapy, but instead of getting better, he became obsessed with the idea that I was going to leave him. He'd call me at all hours, paranoid, asking if I was still there. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. It was like living with a ghost of the man I once loved. Then, out of nowhere, he quit his job. Said he couldn't handle the stress anymore. That was the tipping point for me. We were already struggling to make ends meet. And without his income, we were sunk. I started looking for work, anything to keep us afloat. But it was tough with my ankle and lack of recent job experience. One day, I came home to find him sitting in the dark, surrounded by old photos of us. He said he wanted to remember the good times before everything fell apart. That's when he dropped the bombshell. He'd been hiding debt from me. Credit cards maxed out, loans taken out in both our names. I was furious. How could he be so irresponsible? How could he betray my trust like that? I moved out the next day, crashing on a friend's couch. I couldn't stay there, not with the lies and the debt hanging over us. He begged me to come back, but I couldn't. Not this time. But the universe has a funny way of bringing things full circle. Last week, I got a call from a woman claiming to be his ex from before we met. She said she had a son, his son, and that he'd been paying child support in secret all these years. I couldn't believe it. All the times he said he wasn't ready for kids, and he'd had one all along. I confronted him, and he didn't deny it. Said he was scared I'd leave if I knew. Scared I'd think less of him, but it was too late for that. I already did. The fallout was messy. Lawyers got involved. The debt was split, but so was the secret child support. I was on the hook for it now, too. It felt like a cruel joke. The man who didn't want kids with me had a child with someone else, and now I was paying for it. I found a job eventually, a desk job that didn't require much walking. It's not much, but it's a start. I'm learning to be independent, to rely on myself. It's hard, but I'm getting there. As for him, last I heard, he moved back in with his parents. Maybe he'll get his life together, maybe he won't. But that's not my problem anymore. I've got my own life to rebuild. Thanks for reading. It's been a rough few months, but I'm looking forward to what's next. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.